Mike conducted the experiment. He put a spring over a metal rod and pressed it down. So we have a diagram here for a metal rod and spring at the bottom. So he will press this spring down. Then what will happen? On the diagram on the right shows that the spring will spring upwards. Alright, and after that the spring will come down again. So the reason why the spring up is because of the elastic spring force exerted by the hand onto the spring, which is a compression of the spring, and when it's released, the force of the spring pushes it upwards. And hence, when it comes down, it's due to the force of gravity or gravitational force. Right? Now we are ready to read on the question. He repeated the experiment by pressing the spring down at different distances. So from the table below, we can see that this is the results of the experiment. The distance of the spring pressed down means that this is the change variable. Why? Because everything else is the same except that the distance pressed down on the spring was different at 1 cm, 2 cm, 3 cm, 4 cm. And the result experiment is that we measured the height at which the spring was reached. In other words, the spring bounced upwards. And the results are shown on the right. So for 1 cm spring pressed down, 5 cm of the height the spring was reached. And for 4 cm pressed down, the height reached by the spring was definitely higher at 20 cm. So the results of the experiment is also known as the dependent variable, which is dependent on how much we actually press the spring down. So the question reads, what can the different heights at which the spring reach inform you? So what is the relationship, in other words, between the distance of the spring that was pressed down and the height at which the spring was reached? So what can we say? We can say that as the distance that the spring was pressed down increases, the resultant effect is that the height at which the spring reach also increases. For part B, the question reads, when Mike released the spring after it's been pressed down, it bounced up to a certain height before it dropped back down to the ground. So in fact, there are two forces at work here. So after pressing it down and releasing it, we have a elastic spring force in action. And for dropping it back down to the ground, and the reason is because of the gravitational force. Or the force of gravity. So what is the answer for question 22? So the elastic spring force exerted by the spring caused the spring to bounce up Then what happened? Then the force of gravity caused it to pull it back down. So that's the end of the answer for question 22.